Mara Ellison never expected Christmas Eve to become the night her life split cleanly into a before and an after. At 11:14 p.m., she stood barefoot in 6 inches of snow, her breath turning white in the -12 degrees air. The cold bit her skin like knives, crawling up her legs until her toes vanished into numbness. Inside the warm, glowing house behind her, 30 guests laughed, toasted champagne, and admired the 9-foot Christmas tree blinking red and gold. She could see them clearly through the frosted window. Her father, Caleb Ellison, pouring himself another glass. Her stepmother Dana slicing a 3-layer cake. Her stepsister Sabrina waving at guests like she owned the place. Mara pressed her palm to the glass, but it didn't matter. Sabrina saw her, locked eyes with her, lifted 2 fingers in a cruel little wave, and pulled the curtain shut. Mara whispered a single breath into the freezing night. All I did was ask if I had a present. And that was the truth. One small question. One moment of courage. One spark that lit the fuse. Caleb's voice echoed in her mind. Cold, irritated, final. You want to talk back? Do it outside. Come back when you learn respect. Then the deadbolt clicked, and the warmth disappeared. She hugged herself tighter, shivering violently, but she didn't cry. Not yet. She looked at the porch light off. The windows bright. Her hope shrinking. She thought this was the worst moment of her life. She thought nothing could hurt more than watching her family celebrate while she froze on the other side of the glass. She didn't know yet that everything was about to change. Because at that very moment, headlights turned onto the street. A black limousine rolled toward the house. Slow, deliberate, and unstoppable. To understand the weight of that limousine's arrival, the story must rewind 12 years. Back to the day Mara watched her mother lowered into the ground. She was 9, too young to understand death fully but old enough to feel the way the world tilted when her mother's hand disappeared from hers. The cemetery sky was iron gray, not promising rain, not promising anything. Mara stood beside her grandmother, Eloise Hartwell, a woman who smelled of jasmine and old paper. Eloise held Mara's hand so tightly the girl felt her pulse through her gloves. Your mama loved mahogany, Eloise whispered, brushing a trembling hand along the casket. Good taste. Strong taste. Just like her. Mara leaned into her grandmother's side, searching for warmth in the winter air. But her father stood 6 feet away, jaw locked, hands in his coat pockets, staring ahead as if the grave belonged to a stranger. He didn't cry. He hadn't cried at the hospital, during the viewing, or now. After the last guest drifted away, Eloise knelt in front of Mara, cupped her face, and whispered 5 words that would follow Mara for the next 12 years. I will always find you, little star. Before Mara could answer, Caleb stepped between them. You need to go, Eloise. His voice was ice. Eloise rose slowly. She is my granddaughter. Caleb's jaw tightened. And my daughter is dead because you pushed her too hard. You're not welcome here. Mara's heart stumbled. Her mother died from a brain aneurysm. Everyone said so. Nobody pushed anything. But she was 9. And Caleb was the tallest, loudest force in the room. Eloise looked over his shoulder, forming silent words Mara couldn't hear. Then she walked away. Her car disappeared around the corner, and with it went the last safe place Mara knew. Within a month, Caleb moved them. New town. New number. New life. It's just us now, he said. All we need. Mara believed him. She had no reason not to. Not yet. 2 years later, when Mara turned 11, a woman named Dana Morris walked into their house carrying a smile that showed every one of her teeth. This is going to be wonderful, Dana said, squeezing Mara's shoulders with acrylic nails that dug through her sweater. Behind her was a girl with glossy hair, perfect eyeliner, and a smirk already forming. Sabrina, 14 years old and the new center of every room. Within a week, Sabrina moved into Mara's bedroom, the one with the window seat her mother built by hand. Mara was relocated to the basement. Sabrina needs sunlight for her skin condition, Dana explained, waving her off. Sabrina didn't have a skin condition. She had a tan from soccer camp. Still, Mara learned the new rules fast. She cooked breakfast before school. She scrubbed the kitchen after dinner. She folded laundry every Sunday. Sabrina picked TV shows, outfits, and restaurants, if Caleb took them out at all, which wasn't often. Dana's favorite line to guests was, "Mara likes helping. She's such a little worker bee." One evening Mara gathered her courage and said, "Dad, can Sabrina do dishes tonight? I have homework." Dana's eyes filled instantly, a performance Mara recognized long before she knew the word for it. "I try so hard, Caleb, and she still resents me." Caleb turned toward Mara slowly. "Apologize now," Mara whispered. "I'm sorry," and resumed scrubbing plates until her fingers wrinkled. She would not learn the full truth for another decade. That every birthday, every Christmas, for 12 straight years, Eloise Hartwell mailed gifts and letters to Mara's old address. Gifts that Caleb intercepted and returned before Mara ever saw a single envelope. But for now, Mara only knew the basement cot, the water stain shaped like a fist, and the feeling that her mother's house was becoming a place she no longer belonged. By the time Mara turned 18, she had mastered the art of becoming silent. But silence cracked the day she opened a letter at the kitchen table, a letter that made her breath shake. "Full scholarship," she whispered. "Nursing program. 4-year university." She held the paper out to Caleb with a trembling smile. He didn't look up from his laptop. "Nurses clean up other people's messes. Just like you do here." That same month, Sabrina dropped out of community college mid-semester. Caleb paid off her tuition balance, cleared her credit card debt, and surprised her with a used Audi. "She's finding herself," Dana said, stroking Sabrina's hair like she was a fragile doll. Mara found herself 2 part-time jobs, a diner and a campus bookstore. She paid for her textbooks with crumpled 5s and quarters. She didn't complain. 5 days a week on campus meant 5 days out of the basement. That alone felt like oxygen. Then, one Thanksgiving break, while retrieving a blanket from the basement, Mara discovered an old cardboard box behind the water heater. Her mother's handwriting on the side. "Margaret, personal." Inside were a silk scarf, a half-used perfume bottle that still carried a faint sweetness, and a photograph of her mother laughing beside an older woman in a navy dress. On the back, Margaret and Mom. Eloise's 60th birthday. Mara's heart thudded. Caleb told her grandmother died before she was born. But the photo was time-stamped 2001, 2 years before Mara's birth. That night she almost typed Eloise Hartwell into her phone's search bar. But Caleb checked her browser history every Sunday. She hid the box carefully. 5 months later it disappeared. When she asked Dana where it went, Dana shrugged. "Old junk. Donated. It was my mother's." "Sweetie, it was collecting dust." And something inside Mara shifted. Quietly, painfully, permanently. The shift turned into a break the day Mara found her mother's pearl necklace listed for $43 on Facebook Marketplace. The seller's username was too familiar. D. Morris Home. Dana's email handle. Mara screenshot everything, marched into the garage, and showed Caleb her phone. "She's selling Mom's things," Mara said, keeping her voice steady. "The necklace. The scarf." Caleb barely glanced at the screen. "Dana is my wife. This is her house too. Drop it." "Those were Mom's." "Drop it, Mara." The garage door hummed shut behind him, leaving the air thick with gasoline and betrayal. That night in the basement, staring at the water stain above her cot, Mara felt something settle deep inside her. A truth she could no longer swallow. She had spent years believing that staying quiet preserved peace. That absorbing cruelty was the price of keeping a family. That if she was patient enough, kind enough, invisible enough, someone would finally see her. But lying there in the dark, hearing Sabrina laugh at something upstairs, Mara understood the truth. She wasn't keeping peace. She was keeping their comfort. And nobody was coming to save her. Not unless she made noise. But she didn't know the noise was already coming. 3 days before Christmas, Caleb called a family meeting. "We're hosting Christmas Eve," he announced. 30 guests. "Mara, you're on food. Full spread. Start tomorrow." Sabrina painted her nails beside him, not even pretending to listen. Mara looked at her father. "What is Sabrina doing?" "Helping Dana with the guest list," he replied. "And outfits." For 3 days Mara cooked, cleaned, ironed, decorated, building a celebration she wasn't part of. On December 23rd she counted the gifts under the giant tree. 32 presents. Not one for her. When she asked Dana if she was a guest or staff, Dana laughed. "Don't be dramatic, sweetie. Family helps family." But Mara didn't feel like family. She felt like a shadow wearing an apron. On December 23rd, while Mara basted the ham and checked the pies, a knock sounded at the side door. Soft, polite, out of place in the chaos of holiday preparations. She wiped her hands on her apron and opened it to find Lydia Callan, the quiet silver-haired neighbor who lived 3 houses down. Lydia held a plate of gingerbread cookies wrapped neatly in cellophane, her reading glasses hanging from a delicate chain. "Thought you might like these," she said gently, stepping inside. Her eyes landed on the flowered countertops, the cooling pies, and the stack of dishes soaking in the sink. Then they moved to Mara's face. Flushed, tired, trying too hard to look fine. "All this is you?" Lydia asked softly. Mara forced a smile. "Family helps family." She meant it to sound cheerful, but something in her voice cracked, tiny and sharp. Lydia set the cookies down and touched Mara's elbow, guiding her toward the back porch, away from the noise of holiday music and Dana's laughter drifting from the living room. "Honey," she murmured, "I need to tell you something." Mara frowned. Lydia hesitated, studying her face. "Yesterday a car was parked outside. Black one. Tinted windows. Sat for almost an hour." Mara shrugged. "Probably lost." Lydia shook her head. "Cars like that don't get lost on Maple Drive." She paused, then added quietly, "You look just like your mother." Mara froze. Her heart hit her ribs. Lydia lowered her voice even further. "Your mother's mother. She was a force. She loved that child more than anything in this world." Mara opened her mouth to respond, but before she could speak, the back door swung open. Caleb filled the doorway, beer in hand, smile broad but eyes razor-sharp. "Lydia," he said warmly, "thanks for the cookies." His gaze snapped to Mara. "Warning." Lydia straightened, nodded once to Mara, and walked away. She knew something. Mara just didn't know what yet. Christmas Eve arrived in a rush of cold air and polished silverware. By 6 p.m., 30 guests filled the Ellison living room, their coats piled on the upstairs bed, their laughter rising like warm fog. The 9-foot tree glowed with golden lights. Champagne flutes sparkled. Classical holiday music floated through the house. Mara stayed in the kitchen, apron on, fingers trembling slightly as she plated bruschetta. She could hear Caleb's deep voice above the room. "And this," he said proudly, "is my eldest Sabrina. She's been such a blessing to our family." Mara peeked through the kitchen doorway. Sabrina stood beside the tree in a red velvet dress, posing like someone expecting a crown. Dana hovered near her, beaming like she'd birthed royalty. A guest, Mrs. Palmer from church, glanced around and asked, "And where's your other daughter, Caleb?" Caleb waved a hand dismissively. "Oh, Mara's helping out in the kitchen." "Helping out? On Christmas Eve?" Mrs. Palmer raised an eyebrow. "Helping?" she insisted. Dana chimed instantly. "She's selfless like that." No one questioned it. No one checked on her. Mara continued arranging appetizers that she knew she wouldn't have time to eat. When the dinner bell chimed, she removed her apron and slipped into the living room, wearing the only nice sweater she owned. Navy blue, cable knit, a little frayed at the cuffs. She slid into an empty folding chair at the end of the dining table. No place card for her. No greeting. Just polite nods from Caleb's colleagues. The table was beautiful. The cloth napkins she ironed, the pine and cinnamon centerpiece she made at 1 a.m., the candle she polished until her hands ached. She ate quietly, listening to the laughter around her. Then came the gifts. Sabrina opened her presents first. Then Dana. Then the neighbors. Box after box, ribbon after ribbon, thank you after thank you. Not one tag said Mara. The pile shrank. Her chest tightened. She waited. And waited. Nothing. When the last gift was opened, Mara lifted her head. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't demand anything. She simply asked, "Dad, was there one for me?" The room did not fall silent all at once. It dimmed in waves. Conversations faded, forks lowered, champagne flutes stilled midair. Sabrina stiffened. Dana's lip trembled instantly, the way it always did when she prepared for sympathy. "Evelyn, oh, sweetheart, this isn't the time," she whispered. "I'm just asking," Mara said, keeping her voice soft, steady. Caleb set down his glass. His jaw tightened. "We talked about this. You're 21 now." "Sabrina is 23, Mara replied quietly. "She has 6 presents." A hush rippled across the room. Someone shifted uncomfortably. The clock in the hallway clicked loudly, marking the seconds. Dana turned to Caleb with trembling hands. "She does this," she whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear. "She ruins moments." That was the spark. Caleb stood abruptly, pushing his chair back. "Enough." The word cracked through the room like breaking wood. In 2 strides he reached Mara, grabbed her upper arm and pulled her from the chair. She stumbled, gasping, heels scraping the hardwood she had mopped that morning. "Dad, please. You want to embarrass me? Talk back in front of guests." His grip tightened. "Do it outside." The door swung open. Air knifed through the hallway. -12 degrees. Snow swirling like white fire. Caleb shoved Mara onto the porch. She stumbled, landing hard. Her socks soaked instantly. Before she could stand, the door slammed shut. The deadbolt clicked loud, final. Inside, the party resumed. Champagne poured. Laughter rose again. Someone turned up the music. Outside, Mara pressed her hand to the frosted window. Sabrina looked up, made eye contact, smiled, lifted 2 fingers in a tiny wave, and pulled the curtain closed. The snow buried her feet quickly, rising cold and heavy around her ankles. Wind cut through her sweater. Her fingers turned white, then blue. She curled into herself, pressing her back against the railing. She whispered, "Mom, what do I do?" The wind answered. The house didn't. 30 minutes passed. Maybe more. Time blurred. Pain turned to numbness. Numbness turned to something darker. Quiet, slow, dangerous. Mara was shutting down. But then she saw movement through the living room window. Lydia Callan stood near the curtain, peering out. Her face tightened when she saw Mara curled in the snow. Lydia turned toward Caleb and spoke. Mara saw her lips move. Caleb responded with a sharp, dismissive wave, the same one he used when swatting away servants in restaurants. Lydia stared at him, her jaw clenched. Then she walked away, vanishing from the window. A few minutes later, the side gate creaked. Footsteps crunched in the snow. Lydia reappeared beside Mara, draping a thick wool blanket over her shoulders. "Here, sweetheart," she whispered, voice trembling with anger. "I called someone." Mara's teeth chattered uncontrollably. "Who?" Lydia knelt beside her. "Someone who should have been here a long time ago." Down the street, headlights appeared, wide, low, and bright. They swept across the snowy lawns like searchlights. The engine hummed, a smooth, expensive hum that didn't belong on Maple Drive. A black limousine turned onto the street, tires whispering over snow, moving slowly, purposefully, toward Caleb Ellison's house. Lydia checked her watch. 11:14, she whispered. Right on time. The limousine stopped at the curb. The driver stepped out, then a second man, middle-aged, carrying a leather briefcase. He surveyed the house, then the shivering girl on the porch. And then a hand appeared on the doorframe of the limousine. Teddy, wearing a single gold ring. A woman stepped out. The woman was 78 years old, but she moved with the strength of someone who had never once allowed the world to silence her. Snow swirled around her white cashmere coat. Her silver hair was pinned in a low knot. Her dark eyes, sharp, fierce, unblinking, landed on Mara. She stopped walking. just looked at her. Looked at her the way someone looks at something precious finally found. Then she crossed the yard in 5 determined steps, unbuttoned her coat, and draped it over Mara's shaking shoulders. Warmth rushed in like breath. The woman cupped Mara's freezing face in both hands, palms burning warm, and whispered 2 words that shattered 12 years of lies. "Little star." Mara's lungs froze. Her mind spun. She knew that voice, not from memory, but from a photograph hidden behind a water heater in the basement. 2 women, her mother laughing, and an older woman in a navy dress holding her daughter's waist. Her grandmother, Eloise Hartwell. "I know you," Mara whispered, voice cracking. Eloise's eyes closed for a moment, aching. When she opened them again, they were bright with tears and fury. "And I have been looking for you," she said. "For 12 years." She pulled Mara into her arms, holding her tightly, fiercely, like someone reclaiming something that had been stolen. Mara trembled against her, trying to stay upright. Eloise straightened, turned toward the glowing house, and her expression hardened. She looked at the windows, the laughter, the tree, the man who locked his daughter outside on Christmas Eve. She looked at Lydia, who nodded once, and at the man with the briefcase. "Marcus," she said. He stepped forward. Eloise walked to the front door and knocked 3 times. Each knock firm, measured, final. Inside, the party stilled. Caleb opened the door, champagne still in hand. The glass tilted. His face drained. "Eloise," he whispered. But Eloise Hartwell did not smile. She did not greet him. She looked him dead in the eye and said, "You locked my granddaughter in the snow." Eloise didn't wait for Caleb to speak. Her voice carried through the doorway, slicing through the party chatter like a blade. "You locked my granddaughter in the snow," she repeated, slow and controlled. "On Christmas Eve, in the house I bought." 30 guests froze mid-breath. Even the Christmas lights seemed to hum quieter. Dana stood from the couch, confusion twisting her face. "Who is this woman?" she demanded. But no one answered. They were too busy staring at the elegant 78-year-old woman who had walked into the Ellisons' perfect holiday like a winter storm. Caleb cleared his throat, trying to recover. "Eloise, this is a misunderstanding." "No," she cut sharply. "Nothing about this is misunderstood." She stepped inside, snow melting on her boots. The briefcase man, Marcus Wyatt, followed her calmly, setting the case on the dining table beside the pine centerpiece Mara made. Eloise pointed toward the porch where Mara still stood, wrapped in Eloise's coat. "That girl is freezing because you banished her for asking a question." Dana's eyes widened. Guests whispered. Caleb straightened, his voice turning stern. "This is a family matter. You shouldn't be here." Eloise stepped closer until they were inches apart. Her voice dropped, low and lethal. "I should have been here 12 years ago, Caleb. But you made sure I wasn't." A ripple went through the room. Caleb swallowed. Hard. Eloise turned toward Mara, extending a hand. "Come inside, sweetheart." Marcus guided Mara gently over the threshold, wrapping another blanket over her legs. When her feet touched the warm hardwood, she winced, pain returning as feeling crept back into her toes. Eloise brushed Mara's hair back, looking her over as if memorizing her face for the first time. "No more cold, little star," she whispered. "Not tonight. Not ever again." Then Eloise lifted her chin and faced the room like a queen reclaiming a stolen kingdom. Marcus Wyatt opened the briefcase with a soft click. He withdrew a thick folder, a stack of documents, and several sealed envelopes bound neatly with rubber bands. He placed them on the table with the calm precision of a man delivering truth, not drama. Eloise lifted the top document. "This property," she announced, raising the deed where the golden chandelier light caught it, "was purchased by me, Eloise Hartwell, in 2003 as a wedding gift for my daughter Margaret." Gasps broke through the silence. "The deed," Marcus added, "is solely in Ms. Hartwell's name. It has always been in her name." Dana's mouth fell open. "No, that can't. This is our house. Paying the electric bill does not make you an owner," Eloise replied without flinching. Caleb's face reddened. I've lived here for years. I maintain the property. You lived here rent-free for 21 years, Eloise snapped. I allowed it for Margaret's sake. And then for Mara's. Guests exchanged uneasy glances. Gary from the bank shifted in his seat. Mrs. Palmer covered her mouth. Marcus placed another document on the table. Then another. These, he said calmly, are 12 years of certified letters sent by Ms. Hartwell to Mara Ellison. Every birthday, every Christmas, every summer, all returned unopened. A woman near the fireplace gasped. Eloise lifted the stack of envelopes tied together. 144 letters, she said quietly. Everyone addressed to my granddaughter. Everyone sent back by Caleb with a note. Return to sender. Mara's breath caught. Her knees weakened. Lydia Callan moved closer, steadying her with a hand. Caleb attempted to speak. She was unstable. I was protecting. Do not lie in my presence, Eloise warned. You hid her family. You hid her home. You hid me. The room had shifted. The prideful Ellison facade was cracking open, and everyone could see what lived beneath. Dana tried to salvage the moment. Richard, Caleb, tell her. Tell everyone this is all just some mistake. But Caleb wasn't looking at Dana. He was staring at the documents in Marcus's hands like they were burning. Eloise turned toward him with a slow, deliberate calm. You told Mara I didn't want her. That I abandoned her. Her voice broke, not from weakness but from 12 years of restrained fury. But I searched for her. Hired investigators. Wrote letters. Sent gifts. Everything returned. She held up one envelope. The front read to my little star. Mara in elegant handwriting. The return stamp. Not at this address. Guests murmured in shock. Sabrina stepped forward pale. Dad, is this true? Dana tugged her arm. Sabrina, stay quiet. But Sabrina pulled away. You said her grandmother died. Eloise's face tightened. I am very much alive. Silence swept through the room again, heavier this time. Ruth Callan stepped inside from the hallway then, arms folded. It's true, she said. I saw it. I was at the old house when Caleb cut Eloise off after Margaret died. Told her she wasn't welcome. Told her Mara didn't need her. The room turned toward Caleb. Towards the truth. He finally snapped. She manipulated Margaret. I was protecting my family. Eloise raised her chin. From love. Caleb's voice faltered. Dana whispered urgently. Caleb, say something. Fix this. But Caleb was unraveling. The more he tried to speak, the more the room recoiled. Every lie looked uglier under the chandelier's glow. Eloise rested her hands on Mara's shoulders. You kept her in a basement. Sold her mother's things. Moved her from home to keep me from finding her. Her voice dropped. But I found her anyway. A shiver rippled through the guests. The truth had finally come home. Eloise let the silence stretch. Her gaze fixed on Caleb with a steadiness that made him shrink rather than stand taller. As the legal owner of this property, she said, folding the deed neatly on the table, I am reclaiming it effective January 15th. You have 3 weeks to vacate. Dana's jaw dropped. You can't just kick us out. I absolutely can, Eloise replied. And I am. Marcus spoke next, calm and clear. There is no lease, no rental agreement, no contract giving you occupancy rights. You have no legal claim to stay. Sabrina stared from one adult to another, betrayed by all of them. Dad, this house wasn't yours. She whispered it like she was realizing her world had a crack she'd never seen before. Caleb turned toward her, voice softening into manipulation out of pure instinct. Sabrina, sweetheart. Of course it was ours. Your grandmother is confused. Do not weaponize tenderness, Eloise snapped. Not after locking your daughter outside in the snow. Dana gathered her purse quietly and stepped toward the stairs, ready to flee the moment the room's attention slipped. Eloise noticed. You sold Margaret's necklace, she said. Dana froze mid-step. Listed online for $43. Murmurs exploded. Dana flushed beet red. I didn't know it was sentimental. You didn't care, Eloise corrected. That is different. Caleb swallowed hard, frustration turning to desperation. Let's all calm down. We can talk about this. We are not talking, Eloise replied. We are ending. Caleb looked around the room for allies, but nobody met his eyes. Gary from the bank stood quietly and set his glass down. Mrs. Palmer looked away. The neighbors shifted awkwardly toward the door. Their silence said everything. He was exposed, unmasked, and completely alone. And then he made his final attempt, the most predictable one of all. Caleb approached Mara slowly, softening his features into the gentlest expression he could conjure. His voice dropped to a trembling whisper. Mara, sweetheart, you're my daughter. Don't let this woman come between us. I made mistakes. I lost my temper. But it's Christmas. Don't do this. For a moment the room held its breath. He was good at this. The regretful tone, the softened eyes, the trembling sigh that suggested he was the injured one. For 21 years Mara had fallen for it. Bent her own spine to fit his guilt. Not tonight. Mara straightened, her voice quiet but unwavering. You didn't lose your temper, she said. You made a choice. His expression flickered. What? You pushed me outside barefoot in -12 degrees. And then you went back to your wine. Caleb's face twitched, but she didn't stop. You hid every letter Grandma sent. Every gift. Every card. Every piece of my mother that could have made my life feel less empty. Eloise squeezed her hand gently. You told me she didn't want me, Mara continued. But really, you didn't want her in my life because she saw what you were doing. Dana watched the exchange from the base of the stairs, purse in hand, realizing the performance was over. Sabrina sank onto the couch, eyes wide. Caleb tried again, reaching for her arm. Mara, listen. She stepped back. He froze. She had never stepped back before. I'm not punishing you, Mara said softly. I'm done waiting outside your door. Eloise extended her hand. Mara placed hers inside it. Marcus gathered the documents. Lydia Callan opened the front door. 30 guests watched as Mara Ellison walked out of the house she had spent her life trying to survive. The snow was still falling. But for the first time she did not feel cold. The limousine's warmth wrapped Mara like a new skin. Not the shallow warmth of heated air, but the deep, bone-soothing kind that tells the nervous system it can finally stop bracing. Eloise sat beside her, arranging another blanket across Mara's legs, tucking it carefully around her ankles. Your feet will hurt as they thaw, she murmured gently. But that means they're waking up. Marcus Wyatt handed Mara a thermos of hot tea. She held it between shaking hands. I thought you were dead, she whispered. Eloise inhaled sharply, the kind of breath someone takes when swallowing years of grief. Your father told you that? Mara nodded. He said you didn't want me. Eloise closed her eyes, pained. I wanted you so much, she whispered, voice trembling. I searched for you every day. 3 investigators. Who failed? The 3rd found this address 72 hours ago. I flew out on the next plane. Mara blinked tears away. You came for Christmas. Eloise shook her head softly. No. Came for you. Christmas just happened to be the clock he ran out of. Silence settled in the car, warm and heavy. Snow tapped softly on the windows as Maple Drive shrank behind them. Mara pressed her forehead against the cold glass and whispered. He told everyone I was troubled. He told them I screamed. People who fear exposure, Eloise said gently, often tell the story first. Mara swallowed. What happens now? Eloise folded her hands over Mara's. Now, she said, you come home. The limousine turned onto the main road, leaving the glowing Ellison house behind. Inside that house, Caleb stood humiliated before 30 stunned witnesses. But Mara didn't look back. She didn't need to. For the first time in her life, she was moving toward something, not running from it. The fallout of Christmas Eve was not dramatic fireworks or town gossip shouted from rooftops. It was quieter, administrative, procedural, the kind of consequences that settle like dust until suddenly everything looks different. Lydia Callan kept Mara updated in soft, matter-of-fact phone calls over the following days. "People are talking," she said on December 28. 30 guests means 30 households. And 30 households tell the story to every friend, sister, choir member, and colleague they know. The town knew what Caleb did. And though small towns rarely punish directly, they withdraw quietly. Dana packed 2 suitcases on the 28th and left with Sabrina while Caleb was at work. She didn't file for divorce. Didn't leave a note. Just vanished. "She was only here for the security," Lydia said dryly. "And now that it's gone." On January 2nd, Caleb returned to First Heritage Bank after holiday break. His manager called him into the office within an hour. "Some clients have raised concerns, Caleb. There are questions about your conduct, your integrity." He wasn't fired, but he wasn't trusted either. January 4th, Gary from the party transferred his accounts to another branch. Many followed quietly. On January 15th, Marcus filed the formal notice of vacate. Caleb did not contest it. How could he? His name had never been on the deed. Eloise watched Mara read the updates, her expression shifting between sadness and a strange calm. "It feels strange," Mara confessed, "knowing he's losing everything." "He isn't losing everything," Eloise replied. "He's losing the control he built from lies. There is a difference." Mara held her grandmother's hand. "Do you think that's justice?" Eloise gave her a small, knowing smile. "I think," she said, "it is truth. And sometimes truth is the most righteous thing in the world." Eloise's home was nothing like Caleb's house of curated perfection. Her craftsman cottage sat on a hill in Whitfield, a sleepy town with slow mornings and long sunsets. The porch swing creaked softly in the wind. The green shutters framed windows that always glowed warmly, no matter the hour. When Mara arrived, Eloise gave her the upstairs bedroom, south-facing 2 windows, sunlight that woke her gently instead of with harsh alarms. "Your mother used to sleep in this room," Eloise said quietly. Mara touched the windowsill, imagining her mother at the same age, waking to the same soft light. On Mara's 3rd morning, Eloise placed a heavy cardboard box on the kitchen table. "These," she said, "have always been yours." Inside were 144 envelopes, sorted by year. Mara lifted the first one with shaking hands. March 15th, her 10th birthday. "Dear little star," it read. "I don't know if you'll ever read this, but someone celebrated you today. Baked a cake. Vanilla, your favorite. Your mother told me once." Mara pressed the letter to her chest. "He hid all of these," she whispered. Eloise's chin trembled. "He hid you from all of us." Mara opened letter after letter. Christmas cards, birthday messages, drawings, notes on hotel stationery from places Eloise visited. At the bottom of the box lay a folded statement from a financial advisor. A college fund opened in Mara's name, fully funded, untouched. "He hid this too," Mara said softly. Eloise nodded. "Your grandfather wanted to secure your future. Caleb prevented that." The hours passed as Mara let 12 years of stolen love wash over her. Tears came gently, not from sadness but from the rush of being finally seen. Eloise sat with her, silent, steady, the way no one had sat with Mara since she was 9. February brought the final push of Mara's nursing program. Her commute from Whitfield was long, but Eloise insisted on driving her to the bus station each morning. "I missed too many years," Eloise said, adjusting her mirror. "Let me have these rides." Graduation came on a bright morning. Mara wore a simple white dress she bought with her bookstore wages. When she walked across the stage and accepted her diploma, she scanned the small audience. Eloise sat in the 2nd row, posture regal, clapping with both hands like she was applauding the sun. Beside her sat Lydia Callan, who drove 90 minutes just to be there. After the ceremony, Lydia hugged Mara fiercely. "You are stronger than you know," she whispered. "And kinder than they deserved." On the ride home, the highway shimmered with pale winter light. Mara stared out the window, turning over a question she had avoided for weeks. "Grandma," she said softly, "do you think I should forgive him?" Eloise didn't answer immediately. She drove another mile in silence, the tires humming steadily. "Forgiveness," she finally said, "is something you give for your own peace, not for the comfort of the person who harmed you. And you don't owe it today. Or ever if it costs your safety." Mara nodded slowly. "I don't hate him," she admitted. "I just don't trust him." Eloise glanced at her with warm, steady eyes. "Then that is your answer. Trust is earned." And he burned that bridge himself. That night, Mara sat at Eloise's writing desk and penned a short letter. 4 sentences. No anger. No dramatics. Just a clean, quiet boundary. "Dad, I hope you find peace. But I need mine first. Please don't contact me unless I reach out. If I reach out, it will be my choice. Some doors don't slam. They simply close." Life in Whitfield settled into a rhythm that felt like healing stitched into each routine. Mara completed her clinical rotations at a hospital 30 minutes away. She was assigned to post-operative care, patients waking from anesthesia, confused, frightened, vulnerable. Suited her. "You have a calming presence," one elderly patient told her as Mara tucked her blanket. "Like someone who knows exactly how to help." Mara smiled, soft but real. "Maybe I do," she said, because she remembered what it felt like when nobody helped. She remembered the cold porch, the silence, the years of invisibility, and she remembered what happened when someone finally came. Eloise kept the house warm, literally and emotionally. She cooked soups that smelled like rosemary. She taught Mara how to bake Margaret's blueberry muffins. She hung Mara's nursing certificate on the hallway wall beside a framed picture of Margaret smiling in her 20s. On weekends, they planted pansy seedlings in the garden, their hands dirty and happy. Mara adopted a small gray cat with white paws and named her Star. "Because she found me in the dark," Mara joked. Eloise laughed, wiping tears from her eyes. Mara received 2 job offers from nearby hospitals. She chose the one with the gentlest staff, not the highest salary. "I want a place," she explained to Eloise, "where people look at each other with kindness." Eloise kissed her forehead. "You are rewriting your life, little star." The first snowfall of the season arrived late that year. Mara stood at the window, watching the flakes fall softly, not like weapons, not like memories, but like blessings. She wrapped her grandmother's shawl around her shoulders. There was no porch light turned off. No glass between her and warmth. No voice telling her to earn her place. She already had one. And she always had. Spring crept into Whitfield gently, waking the garden in shades of pink and gold. Mara's life grew color along with it. Her shifts at the hospital were demanding but fulfilling. She learned patients' stories, remembered their families' names, and brought small comforts. A warm washcloth, a cup of ice, a joke delivered quietly so pain didn't feel so heavy. One afternoon, a fellow nurse named Tessa said, "You always make people feel safe. Did someone teach you that?" Mara paused. "Someone taught me what it feels like when no one comes," she said. "I want to be the person who comes." At home, Eloise baked bread and wrote letters to old friends, many of whom responded with stunned disbelief. "You're alive? We thought you moved across the country." Eloise only smiled. "Rumors thrive where silence lives," she told Mara. Lydia visited often. She brought vegetables from her garden, gossip from town, and always some variation of, "People still talk about Christmas Eve." Mara would shrug. "Let them," she'd say. "It's not my burden." One evening, while Mara and Eloise cleaned the dishes, Eloise asked quietly, "Do you ever miss them?" Mara dried a plate slowly. "I think I miss the idea I had of them," she admitted. "The version that never really existed." Eloise nodded, understanding too well. "Missing illusions is part of healing," she said. Later that night, Mara wrote in her journal, the same one she used during nursing school. What I learned this year. A locked door says more about the person inside than the one outside. Star curled up on her chest, purring. Mara whispered, "We're okay now." She wasn't saying it to convince herself. She was saying it because it was finally, irrevocably, beautifully true. Summer brought a different kind of warmth. Steady, content, unhurried. Mara spent her days off exploring Whitfield's quiet streets, farmers' markets, and the little coffee shop where the barista learned her order by heart. "Hazelnut latte, extra warm," he'd say with a grin. "Rough shift." She'd smile. "Good one, actually." Her nights were spent on the porch with Eloise, watching fireflies rise from the garden like tiny lanterns. Sometimes they talked about Margaret, Eloise's daughter, Mara's mother. Sometimes Eloise told stories about the cafe where she worked in her 20s, or the road trip she took to Arizona just because she felt like seeing red rocks. One night Mara asked, "Grandma, do you think Mom would be proud of me?" Eloise looked at her with eyes full of memory. "She would be proud," she said softly, "that you survived a world that tried to dim you. But she would be even prouder that you still shine." Mara swallowed hard. "I used to think I had to earn love," she whispered. "By being quiet, helpful, invisible." Eloise shook her head. "You had to earn safety. Love was already yours. It was stolen, not lost." Mara let the words settle into her bones. On her bedside table sat a framed photograph Eloise recreated. A tiny locket image of Margaret laughing, the same one Dana had carelessly sold. Mara wore the locket every day, the pearl resting just above her heart. Summer ended softly. Leaves began to change. And something inside Mara did too. A quiet certainty settled beneath her ribs. She had been unwanted by some, but not unloved. Never unloved. And that difference changed everything. Autumn returned with crisp mornings and warm evenings. Mara walked to work through trees painted gold and cinnamon. She felt stronger than she ever had. Not loud strength. Not hard strength. Quiet strength, the kind that grows in people who have survived storms and learned how to rebuild. One afternoon, during her break, she received a message from Marcus Wyatt. "Caleb Ellison has officially vacated 47 Maple Drive." Mara stared at the words for a long moment. Not with triumph. Not with sorrow. Just closure. Later that evening, sitting at Eloise's kitchen table, she read the short follow-up note displayed by Marcus. Caleb's handwriting was shaky. "Please tell Mara I'm sorry." Eloise watched her carefully. "What will you do?" Mara folded the letter gently. "Nothing," she said. "Some apologies aren't invitations. They're just exits." Eloise smiled sadly. "You continue to amaze me." Mara shrugged lightly. "I just learned the difference between someone wanting forgiveness and someone wanting access." That night, Mara walked into her old bedroom upstairs, opened the box of letters again, and picked one at random. "Dear little star," it read, "the world is big but my love is bigger. Don't let anyone shrink who you become." Mara traced the handwriting with her thumb. "I won't," she whispered. She placed the letter back and stepped outside onto the porch. The moon hung low, bright and soft. She breathed in the cool night air. Somewhere in town, people still talked about Christmas Eve. A scandal for them. A salvation for her. Mara wrapped her sweater around her shoulders and whispered, "I am not that girl anymore." She meant it. Every word. December arrived again. 1 full year after the night Mara nearly froze outside her father's house. Whitfield transformed into a postcard town. Wreaths on lampposts, warm lights strung across porches, bakery windows fogged from cinnamon rolls and gingerbread. Eloise's house smelled like pine and cinnamon sticks. On December 24th, she and Mara decorated their 5-foot tree. Not a towering display. Not a symbol of wealth. Just something simple and loved. Mara wore her pearl necklace, the locket warm from her skin. "Ready for your gift?" Eloise asked, sliding a small box across the floor. Mara laughed. "Grandma, you already gave me everything." "Humor me," Eloise insisted. Mara opened the velvet box. Inside was a pair of delicate pearl earrings, designed to match her necklace. "These were Margaret's," Eloise whispered. "She wore them at your baby shower." Mara felt tears burn her eyes. She fastened them on, the pearls glowing softly in the firelight. "Your turn," she said. Eloise opened her own box. Inside lay a hardcover scrapbook. The first page held a photograph of Mara in her nursing uniform. The next page showed them gardening, then cooking, then laughing. Under each picture Mara had written a small caption. "Thank you for finding me. Thank you for believing me. Thank you for staying." Eloise pressed her fingers to the page. "This," she whispered, voice trembling, "is the greatest gift I've ever received." They sat by the fire, sipping cocoa, unwrapping memories instead of obligations. Snow fell outside, soft, steady, gentle. Mara looked out the window. The porch was bright, warm, safe. No locked doors. No cold silence. It was home. "Last Christmas," Mara murmured, "I was outside looking in." Eloise touched her hand. "This Christmas," she said softly, "you are the warmth inside." Mara sat quietly, letting the glow of the fire settle into her bones. Star the cat curled on her lap, purring. The room felt full of comfort, of memory, of things finally put right. She closed her eyes and spoke softly, as if to her younger self standing barefoot in the snow. "You survived," she whispered. "You walked away. You chose you." She thought of the basement cot, the water stain on the ceiling, the gifts she never opened, the birthdays spent unnoticed. She thought of the 30 guests who sat in silence while she stood freezing outside their celebration. None of that defined her anymore. None of it owned her. She remembered something Eloise had said during one of their late-night talks. "You don't need anyone's permission to have value. But you do need to give yourself permission to walk away." Mara finally understood it. Completely. Deeply. Peace, she realized, wasn't silence. Peace was safety. Peace was warmth. Peace was knowing you could stand tall without anyone's approval. She opened her journal and wrote, "Love doesn't lock you out. Love shows up. Love knocks on your door at 11:14 p.m. in a snowstorm because it heard you were cold." She closed the journal and looked at Eloise, her grandmother, her rescuer, her proof that love can be delayed but not destroyed. "Merry Christmas, little star," Eloise said softly. Mara smiled. "Merry Christmas, Grandma." Outside, snow fell again, but this time Mara watched it from the warm side of the glass, wrapped in safety and belonging. Not invisible. Not forgotten. Not locked away. Loved. And that was the true ending. Not the night she was cast into the cold, but the night she stepped out of it forever.